From failing to see eye to eye with USADA for his comeback bout, to having a hard time finding opponents to lock horns with, here's why Conor McGregor's return to the UFC will be the biggest fail of all time. 2023 hasn't been the year for Conor. He's been front page news for all the wrong reasons, and his entire career in the UFC is falling apart. Yep, even his comeback bout with Michael Chandler is in jeopardy. Fans were waiting for the Irishman's return to the UFC like no other. You know how much we've missed that Billy strut across the cage. But thanks to Conor not giving zero Fs about his return, the bout is up in the air again. Say what now? Yeah, Conor missed the USADA deadline, so I hate to burst your bubble, but he isn't fighting in 2023. It's the Irishman's fault. All he had to do was join USADA's testing pool, and last I checked, the UFC star was dying to step into the octagon again. But maybe it has finally hit him. There's a lot at stake here. Remember when Conor crushed his leg at UFC 264? He hasn't stepped into the octagon since, so his legacy in the UFC has been paused for some time. When fighters return from long layoffs like Conor, they've got a lot to prove in the cage, and losing their comeback fight isn't an option at all. Especially for the Irishman who's already on an embarrassing losing streak. Yeah, remember how Conor lost both his fights with Dustin Poirier in humiliating fashion? That's the last of the Irishman in the cage, and if he's anything like that, oh boy, he's going down. Ever since Nate Diaz slammed the brakes on Conor's hype train, he has lost his mojo. Come on, don't you remember how Khabib Nurmagomedov ended him in the cage with that neck crank? If I were Conor, I would have taken the hint and retired after the 2021 losses to Poirier. I mean, he's had one of the best runs in the UFC, and retiring while you're still at the top is always smart to do. Plus, that gruesome leg injury gave him a good reason to call it quits for good. But you know Conor, he loves doing things his own way, so he's risking it all and making a comeback. Now, the Irishman is coming back with a lot of big plans. He wants to win fight after fight with his classic one-punch knockouts, and make a run for the welterweight gold to become the first UFC fighter to hold titles in 3 divisions. Now that's a perfect plan on paper, but it's easier said than done. McGregor's comeback is set to be a fail as it is, and it's going to be a disaster if he locks horns with the welterweight guys. Now don't get me wrong, I know Conor's a UFC legend. What makes you think he's half the good fighter he once was? Fans got a glimpse of him near the octagon in UFC's The Ultimate Fighter, and he's lacking. Yep, no jokes. McGregor isn't looking too good. Yes, he's more ripped than ever now, but does he still have the same fight IQ after staying off the mat for 2 years? When I talk about the welterweight division, I'm talking about big guys who've been actively fighting. If Conor wants the belt, he'll have to take down the best of the best. I'm talking Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, Gilbert Burns. Yeah, all the big guys. The Irishman was set to fight Chandler in the division, but that's not going to be a real welterweight challenge for him, because Iron Chandler's been fighting in lightweight since 2011. It'll get real once he steps a foot into the cage with the OG welterweight guys, and they think McGregor has no business fighting in their division. I don't blame him. A natural featherweight going against the welterweight guys after being out of the game for 2 years? Talk about the recipe for disaster. And as Burns said, I'm not even calling for that fight because it's not fair. Yeah, the Notorious won't be able to handle all that wrestling. The only thing keeping McGregor relevant in the fight world is his ability to bring in the PPVs. But it looks like even that isn't going to last long for the Irishman. Remember when I said he's been front page news for all the wrong reasons? Yeah, that's one way to send your name dragging through the dirt. Conor's losing the charm he once had, all thanks to his long list of controversies. Yeah, his ratings are going down, and that's making Dana White lose his interest in the Irishman. UFC predicted Conor to turn the tables on The Ultimate Fighter. Let's be honest, that show has a rep for being boring, and it's never done well in ratings. Turns out even Conor's appearance couldn't do much for the show. White was hoping the ratings would go through the roof, so McGregor's season of Tough also premiered on ESPN's primary channel, along with the usual ESPN Plus platform. But the show finished number 11 on cable for its premiered episode. You know what that's making me wonder? The whole fight world believed Conor's comeback bout would be the fight of the year. Yeah, I wonder if that's still true. There are many other fights that fans would rather see, so Conor's comeback is setting up to be a big fat fail. If I start listing down all the Irishman's controversies, it's gonna take me days, because you know he's one to stir up the pot. But come on, assault lawsuit? Yeah, that's gonna do some real damage. Conor almost ruined his entire career at the NBA Finals 4 game. Yeah, I'm not kidding. A woman accused the UFC star of violently assaulting her in the men's bathroom in the Kaseya Center. Say what now? And to make things even worse, she said the whole arena and league security was in on it. Now, Conor's had his fair share of lawsuits over the course of his career, but this one's darn serious. The victim has videos and everything. Of course, the Irishman denied all allegations, but he's ready to go to court. Guess we'll have to see how this one plays out for him. But let me tell you, it's making things worse for his return. I mean, how much bad PR does it take for fans to be done with someone? Conor's close to the limit, thanks to him being reckless as if his whole career isn't on the line. The UFC star is doing more damage than fans can keep up with. Yeah, at this point, the internet's calling him UFC's very own clown. It's a whole damn circus in Conorland. He's sending mascots to hospital and not even feeling sorry for it. You know what happens when a promotional skit between a pro MMA fighter and a mascot goes horribly wrong? Someone ends up in the ER. Ask Miami Heat's mascot Bernie about it. He took the best of McGregor's brutal punches when the UFC star was there to promote his pain relief spray title. See the irony there? The spray couldn't do much for poor Bernie, and he had to go get some real pain medication. As for Conor, he got called out for not being in his right mind. I mean, who the hell takes MMA to the basketball courts? I understand if the Irishman misses being in the octagon, but the right way to deal with that is showing up at USADA's testing calls, definitely not beating the hell out of mascots. Talk about causing trouble wherever you go. Conor's out of his mind, and it's gonna cost him a lot. Yeah, like his entire UFC career, because along with all these controversies, the athlete's also taking PEDs. And thanks to being all juiced up, the Irishman is gonna have a really hard time finding opponents. Chandler agreed to fight McGregor in a heartbeat, because he'd been begging for this matchup since his Bellator days, and he knows that Conor's comeback bout means big payday. Well, I wouldn't be too sure about that last part now. On top of losing PPVs, the Irishman is also accused of taking steroids. And you know what these allegations do to UFC fighters? No one wants to fight athletes who are on the juice. Yeah, we all want fair fights, and Conor's allegations are taking him down. You know it's serious when the man himself, Joe Rogan, calls you out for being on PEDs. The UFC commentator said the Irishman's piss would melt USADA's testing cup, and we don't take Rogan's words as grains of salt. I mean, there's a reason why McGregor is dodging USADA's tests, right? He's got something to hide, and UFC fighters don't want to fight athletes with secrets. Yeah, Justin Gaethje was clear about wanting fair competition. The athlete said, "I do not want to fight people that are taking performance-enhancing drugs." Well, that's one less opponent for McGregor, and there are many more. I'm telling you, Conor's setting himself up for failure by making a comeback, and retiring would have been the smart thing to do. So, there you have it, Fight World. From having a hard time finding opponents to lock horns with, to failing to see eye to eye with USADA for his comeback bout. This was why Conor McGregor's return to the UFC will be the biggest fail of all time.